Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're opening a case file, and this one's different. We're looking at the history of a nation, but not as a political story. We're examining it as a corporate heist.
Right, so let's start with that central question, that premise. What if we treat historical documents as evidence, legislative acts as moves in a massive, decades-long, calculated takeover? That's the lens we're using today. So here's our investigation plan. I'm going to walk you through the crime itself, breaking down how the heist was pulled off piece by piece. Then I'll hand it over to our strategist, who's going to show you the tools that exist today for a full civic audit. Okay, let's dive right in. Look, every heist, every corporate takeover, it needs a set of books, and it needs someone to write the rules. So first, we've got to define our key terms. First up, we have the scribe. Think of these as the architects of the whole system, the colonial administrators who literally wrote the rules of the game. And surprise, surprise, the rules were written to benefit the empire. They authored the entire operating manual for this enterprise. And what were they writing in? The ledger. This is the official record. It's more than just paper. It's the central database, the system designed specifically to turn self-sufficient, independent people into entries on a balance sheet, to turn them into assets that could be managed and controlled. And finally, what were they trying to control? We're calling it the charge. This is the inherent life force, that spirit, that independence of a people. It's the resource, the energy that the entire system was built to capture and ultimately to harvest. So, what was the scribe's first major move? Well, they had to force people onto the ledger, and they did it with something called the 1906 poll tax. Think of it as the first billing system. It was this unilateral contract that demanded payment in British sterling. And of course, the only way to earn sterling was to sell your labor to the mines. It was basically a beta test for locking people into a wage labor grid. Now, there was resistance to this, of course. The Bambatha Rebellion is a key example, but that was met with overwhelming force. So the scribe, being clever, shifted tactics. They moved away from just using the Maxim gun to a much more sophisticated weapon, legal architecture. They started designing a cage made of laws. And just look at this. It really shows you how methodical the whole plan was. This wasn't random. It was a rapid-fire sequence of foundational laws, each one building on the last, all designed to enclose the population. First jurisdictionally, then physically, and then economically. The absolute core protocol, the operating system for the whole thing, was the 1909 South Africa Act. And get this. This wasn't even a local law. It was an act of the British Parliament. It effectively liquidated 4 separate colonial territories and created a new master trust, registered in London, called the Union of South Africa. And what was the very first major action of this new corporate entity? The 1913 Natives Land Act. Its purpose was simple and brutal. It was to allocate a tiny fraction of the land to the vast majority of the people, leaving this staggering percentage, 87%, for the minority. You can see it right here. This act literally forced millions of people off their ancestral lands. It completely destroyed their self-sufficiency. Because think about it, if you can't live off your own land, you have no choice but to go and work for the scribe. This was the physical enclosure. The walls of the cage were now built. Okay, so the population is now physically enclosed on just 13% of the land. What's the next step in the heist? Well, now you have to categorize and control the massive new labor force you just created. So along comes the 1924 Industrial Conciliation Act. On the surface, it was sold as a way to protect laborers. This was right after the Rand Rebellion, where white miners went on strike because they were worried about being replaced by cheaper black labor. But its real purpose? Oh, it was much more sinister. It created what we're calling a tiered wardship, and it did it through a very simple legal trick. It created a legal definition for the word employee, and if you didn't fit that definition, which most black workers didn't, you had no right to join a union, no right to strike, and no right to bargain for your own wages. You were legally recategorized as just a raw human resource for the machine. Okay, so the investigator has laid out the crime scene perfectly. Now, I'm here as the strategist. My job is to explain a critical system glitch, a glitch that actually provides the key to a solution.
So, decades pass, and the documentary Last Grave at Dimbaza comes out, and it showed the world the absolutely devastating human cost of this system. This is the logical endpoint of the 1909 enclosure. This is what happens when that charge, that life force, is completely drained. It is the horrific, literal image of a trustee consuming its beneficiary.
But then, in 1996, something incredible happens. We get a trustee reset. A brand new foundational code is installed, the Constitution. And this new code creates a fundamental conflict, a system error with the old 1909 software. You see, the old code treated people as wards of the state, as subjects. But the new code, it recognizes everyone as a sovereign beneficiary with inherent dignity. So, this is the crucial point. How do we actually use this new code? How do we leverage this glitch in the system? We do it by completely stopping to act like wards in the old system, and we start acting like the beneficiaries of the new one. And this right here requires a complete mental shift. You see, service delivery isn't some gift from the scribe that you have to beg for. It is the rightful yield from your public trust, from your estate. You stop begging a master for scraps, and you start holding a trustee accountable to the terms of the contract, the Constitution. And this isn't just a theory. You have tools at your disposal. The Constitution itself provides the mechanisms for you to hold the state, as the trustee, accountable to you, the beneficiary. The public protector, the auditor general, these aren't favors. They are your instruments for conducting a civic audit. The entire heist from 1909 onwards was designed to do one thing: to make you forget your own power, to make you believe you were a helpless ward, not a director. Functional civic literacy, actually knowing the terms of the 1996 contract, is the absolute key to reclaiming your role as the managing director of your own family's estate. So we want to leave you with this one final thought. The old system, that 1909 software, it's still running in the background, but it only persists because we continue to operate within its old broken protocols. The new code is there. The update is available. The real question is, are you ready to install it? It's time to move from defense to dominion.